A man called his wife from the office and said, "Honey, my boss and a few of his friends invited me on a fishing trip to Bali. I'll be gone for a week. This is a great opportunity for me to get the promotion I've been wanting for so long. So could you please pack me a week's worth of clothes? Prepare my fishing gear and get my tackle box ready? We're leaving straight from the office, and I'll stop by the house to pick up my stuff. Oh, and don't forget to pack my new blue pajamas." His wife thought this sounded a bit suspicious, but being a good wife, she did as he asked. The following weekend, her husband came home, looking a little tired but overall fine. She welcomed him back and asked, "So how was it? Did you catch a lot of fish?" Her husband replied, "Yeah. I caught a lot of tuna, some snapper, and a few groupers. But why didn't you pack my new blue pajamas like I asked?" His wife smiled and said, "I did. They were in your tackle box." One day, a blind pilot walked into the airplane. The passengers looked at each other in disbelief. The flight attendant then announced, "Dear passengers, our captain is legally blind, but rest assured he is one of the best pilots in the world, with over 6,000 successful flights." The co-pilot, who was also blind, followed the captain using a cane. The flight attendant continued, "Ladies and gentlemen, our co-pilot is also blind, but rest assured he is the second best pilot in the world, with over 5,000 successful flights." The passengers started murmuring nervously to one another. As the plane began moving down the runway, all the passengers looked out the window and saw that there were only about 20 feet of runway left. The plane still hadn't taken off, so they began screaming, "We're going to crash!" Suddenly, at the last second, the plane took off. The pilot then turned to the co-pilot and said, "If one day they stop screaming, we're screwed." There were three friends who had a very good friend named John. He was always optimistic. No matter how bad the situation was, John would always say, "Well, at least it's not that bad," whether it was heavy rain, losing his wallet, or anything else. His positive attitude never faded. This actually annoyed his friends, so they decided to make up the worst possible story, one so terrible that John wouldn't be able to find anything positive about it. They just wanted to see him react negatively at least once. The next day, only two of his friends showed up to play golf. John asked, "Where's Tom? Why didn't he come?" One of his friends said, "Haven't you heard about Tom?" John was curious. "No, what happened?" "Yesterday, Tom caught his wife cheating in their house. He was so furious that he beat up the guy almost to death. Now Tom is at the police station." John, still optimistic, said, "Well, at least it's not that bad." His two friends were shocked. "How can you say that?" "Our friend is in serious trouble," calmly John replied. "If that had happened 2 days ago, I'd probably be in the hospital right now." There was a mother who prepared food for her child every day to take to school. However, the child would always spit it out and say, "This food is disgusting." Every time he came home from school, he would yell at his mother, "The food you make is horrible." The mother would cry because she had done her best to provide food with what little they had. She simply couldn't afford the kind of meals her child wanted. Days passed, and eventually the mother couldn't take it anymore. She left, leaving her child alone. A man knocked on the door and said, "Your mother is gone. You will be taken to an orphanage." At the orphanage, the boy saw many children holding small pieces of bread, sharing with each other while smiling. They offered him a piece and said, "Here, have some bread." He took it, bit into it, and suddenly started crying. He missed his mother and her cooking. A week later, his mother came to the orphanage. The boy said, "Mom, take me home." His mother replied, "My child, you must learn to be grateful. There are many children out there who can't even afford a piece of bread." A billionaire decided to test his 3 directors to determine who would take over his company after he retired. One day, he gave each of them a box with the same contents. He said, "Sell this box. Whoever makes the most money will be my successor." After a month, the 3 directors returned with their results. The first director said, "I managed to sell the box for $300. It was a bit difficult, but I did it." The second director said, "I sold mine for $900. I contacted a wealthy collector and convinced him of its value." The third director smiled and said, "I sold mine for $6,000. They were all shocked and asked, "How did you do that?" The last director replied, "I held a raffle. I sold 300 tickets for $20 each." The billionaire was impressed and asked, "But didn't the person who won the box complain after seeing what was inside?" The director grinned and replied, "The winner? Oh, I just gave him his $20 back." A man was driving down the road at high speed and ran a red light. A police officer saw him, pulled him over, and said, "Good afternoon. Do you realize you just broke the law?" The man replied, "Yes, officer, I do. I was trying to escape a robbery." The officer, shocked, asked, "You were robbed?" "No, I was the one robbing," the man said casually. The officer was confused and asked, "So you robbed someone, sped, and ran a red light?" "Yes," the man answered. "The stolen goods are in my trunk." The officer, now furious, moved closer to arrest him. Panicked, the man yelled, "Let me go! I'm afraid you'll find the gun in my glove compartment." The officer immediately called for backup. Within minutes, several police cars arrived at the scene. The man was quickly handcuffed and taken to a patrol car. But before they put him inside, another officer approached him and said, "This officer claims you committed a robbery, have stolen goods in your trunk, and a gun in your glove compartment. But we searched your car and found nothing." The man smirked and said, "Yeah, and I bet that liar also told you I was speeding and ran a red light." A married couple became famous for never having an argument in 25 years. A journalist visited them to find out the secret to their happy marriage. The journalist asked the husband, "Sir, this is incredible. How have you never had a fight?" The husband began telling the story of their honeymoon. "After our honeymoon, we went horseback riding. I was lucky to get a calm horse, but my wife got a wild one. While she was riding, her horse suddenly started bucking and she fell off. She patted the horse and said, 'One time.' Then she got back on. A little while later, the horse bucked again and she fell off once more. She stayed calm, patted the horse again and said, 2 times. She got back on. But then, the horse acted up again and threw her off for the 3rd time. My wife pulled out a gun and shot the horse dead. I was completely shocked and asked, 'What are you doing?' 'You just shot the horse. What's wrong with you?' She looked at me and said, 1 time,